Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Matt. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hi, I'm Matt Rowe. I live in northern Alberta, Canada, near Cold Lake. I have a bison ranch. We're a fairly small bison ranch, growing slowly but surely.
Awesome. So I'm just curious about your background. Like, what kind of made you get into this? Like, have you always been in this industry?
Before I got into bison ranching, this was actually my COVID purchase. I went to the store and all the toilet paper and meat was gone. And so I said, well, I think I need a herd of bison. So I already had the land and stuff because I was in the military at the time. And when I was posted to Cold Lake, the air base there, as a search and rescue helicopter pilot. And so when the COVID pandemic hit and everything was locking down, and I thought this might be the end of the supply system as we know it, I want to have my own. So really it was just kind of the prepper in me that decided I needed a herd of bison in the backyard. And of course, as we all saw, COVID wasn't really the end of the world, but it was the end of my career. Yeah, it led to better things.
Awesome. So in terms of I guess it's one thing to get land, but it's a whole different thing to actually go and start a farm and get bison. So what did that process look like to actually go and get your first bison to go and launch this farm?
It actually took a little longer than I thought because the place that I had bought when I got posted here, it was an old deer farm back in the 90s and it had been on the market for a little while. So I bought that up, and so it had the big fences and stuff already. I was just renting it out to a guy who was keeping his beef cattle here in the pastures. Our pastures aren't real great for beef cattle. A lot of wet area. The cows, there were areas of the pasture they wouldn't cross, so they'd get stranded on one side or the other, and it was only really being terribly underutilized. So I'd been thinking about getting bison or something like that for a little while, and just so happened at COVID pandemic, the farmer that was keeping his cows here, he decided to scale back a little and didn't renew his rental for that year in 2020. So I started looking into getting bison, and it actually took until about October for me to get the first bison here. The guy I bought them from has a ranch about 25 minutes away. And so I talked to him for a bit, and at first he thought I just wanted a few pounds of meat out of the freezer or something. And when I drove up to his ranch and said I wanted some bison, he said, well, I'll go look in the freezer. I said, no, I was thinking maybe a few of them. He's like, oh, you're one of those.
That's awesome.
He came out, took a look at the fences, made sure that he wasn't going to sell them to me and then have them run away 3 minutes later or something. And he looked and saw that ought to do it. So anyway, then he sent over a load of bison, which was a little bit I mentioned the idea to my wife, but I think she thought I was joking. And then, and nothing really had come of it for a while because, like I said, there was a little bit of a process there and she wasn't really all that interested. It wasn't until, a month or two after I'd mentioned it, then this trailer pulls up and clanging around and all these bison jump out and start eating our grass. And she was a little upset with me about that one.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So in terms of actually, feeding them and taking care of them, what did that look like? Because obviously, you were saying this is kind of a new thing. So did you learn that on YouTube or online? How did you
No, I bought bison mainly because they require so little care up here. This is basically their natural environment where God put them. It's not like I was trying to introduce elephants or something like that and trying to recreate the woolly mammoth or something like that. These things were designed to be here. This is where God made them to grow. In that sense, I thought it would be pretty easy. One of the biggest things is having good fences with them. And I had that already. So it was kind of a natural fit. I was still flying rescue missions and stuff at the time, and I could be sent away. I'd get a call in the middle of the night, and I might be gone for a couple hours, or I might be gone for a couple months. I never knew what was coming, so I didn't want to leave my wife and kids with, something that was going to require a whole lot of hands-on work and that they're really not used to doing. I dealt with cattle and stuff when I was younger, but my wife, she was more of a town girl, so she wasn't as comfortable with that as I was.
Makes sense. So essentially, like with the bison, you're saying, like, as opposed to cows or other animals, if they can pretty much live, and eat off the grass, and there's not like a major issue in terms of feed and taking care of them, they're pretty self-sufficient, like in the current.
Yeah, as long as you give them enough space, and that space has everything they need, which it does here. And they've actually been improving the land a lot. Like the bison kind of supposedly were responsible for the great grasslands of the prairies. They kept it, maintained it by eating down the bushes and tilling up the soil with their hooves and stuff. And they basically kept the grasslands of the prairies as grasslands. So they kind of almost formed it to their own needs, like almost like beavers or something like that, but bigger and woollier. I'm already in the right place. I just needed to transplant them here, basically. It's kind of how I figured it.
For sure.
Seems to have worked.
So in terms of like, taking the bison, and I guess in terms of like your business today, so what does that look like? Are you selling them, do you sell like meat? Like what does that look like in terms of like your actual business, and how do you go about like, getting in front of your customers?
Well, so that's kind of, I hadn't really designed it as a business when I came up with the idea, but I realized that bison are kind of a big overhead investment, really, to have a herd of them running around. I don't eat nearly as many as I produce. And what I do is, because I do everything right on the farm here, like slaughter them here, and then I take them to a professional butcher to get cut up and stuff, but just because I'm not really set up for that. But I didn't want to get into like having to haul them to an abattoir somewhere or something like that, slaughterhouse, because bison get really stressed, and I didn't want all that stress hormones in my meat and stuff like that. So they don't like transport much. So, but one of the things in Canada here is if your meat's slaughtered on the farm, you can't sell it because it's uninspected. Like you can't have it inspected out on the farm. So what I do is I take deposits on them and sell them while they're still alive to people. And then as part of after the sale service, I take care of killing it and getting it cut up at the butcher and stuff like that. So I'm not selling anybody meat, but the smallest amount I can sell is like they have some loopholes in there for us so that people can do this. The smallest amount I can sell is a quarter share of a bison. And yeah, so that's kind of how I do that. And it kind of opens it up to let other people that want to have control of their own meat source, don't really trust the system maybe of what's going into their beef or whatever that even is in the grocery store that you're buying that they call it beef. And you never really know what's in it with them trying to feed us crickets and everything else nowadays. So it just kind of almost operates a little bit like a bit of I wouldn't say a co-op or something, but it allows other people to take control of their meat supply without having to buy an entire ranch and herd of bison for themselves. They can just buy as small as a quarter or a whole, or I've never had anybody order more than a whole. I suppose they could.
So in terms of your customers, I know Canada, because you mentioned there's some different regulations. So can you only sell to people within the province, or can you ship outside the province? Like, what does that look like?
I can only sell in Alberta. Now, I think it's a little bit of a gray area because I have had people from Saskatchewan and stuff, like nearby provinces, buy from me, and which I figure is fine because they buy it in Alberta, and what they do with it afterwards is kind of their own business. But as far as like if anybody in the States and stuff like that, I don't think you'd be able to get it across the border. I've had my roast beef sandwiches confiscated before trying to drive down there, so trying to cross any major borders would be a problem. Yeah, trying to cross any major borders would be a problem, I think, because it is uninspected meat. But within Canada, there's some people in neighboring provinces, but our provinces out here are pretty huge, so it wouldn't really make sense for somebody out east to be buying it here and be just as much cost for shipping as for the actual buffalo itself.
Yeah, makes sense. So in terms of marketing your products, what is the best way that you've been able to get in front of people? Like, do you run ads on Facebook? Do you do farmers markets? What's been like the best way to kind of grow this business?
When I first getting started selling to the public, which was only a year and a half ago, I ran a bunch of ads on Facebook and stuff just to kind of get myself out there. And it's kind of handy that way because it'll let me target, my main demographic, which is people in Alberta. So it really let me do that very well and kind of built up an email list that way. And I mean, most of the people on my email list don't actually buy anything and probably never will. It put me in front of some of the people that do want it. And then I stopped running Facebook ads probably a little over a year ago because I don't really need it anymore. People that have bought it, some of them increase their orders and stuff, and they start buying, some people that bought a quarter originally, now they're ordering a side, or some people are even ordering whole bison after they tried it. They don't ever want to run out. I only slaughter them once a year. The meat only comes in the fall. So the people that have tried it and don't want to go back to grocery store meat tend to increase their orders, or they tell their friends. And so it's been spreading by word of mouth. And pretty much I'm almost all sold out for this fall already. I've only got like 3/4 of a bison left unreserved, which is, so people, yeah, it's been kind of growing just word of mouth and kind of growing basically at a comfortable pace, because my herd's not growing that fast either. They're not like rabbits or something like that. They have a calf once a year if I'm lucky.
For sure. And then in terms of like your business, I mean, have you thought about getting other types of animals like cows, or are you really kind of focused on bison? Like, what does that kind of look like for you?
I dabbled in chickens and turkeys last year, and that was kind of a bit of an epic fail, really. I bought a bunch of those Cornish cross chickens and figured because people had been asking me about getting, some other types of meat like chickens and turkeys and stuff like that. Because bison, they're not cheap. The cheapest option I have here for like a small quarter is close to $1,500, and that's if you're coming and picking it up. Like, so it's not cheap at all. And so people were kind of looking for a cheaper way to get some healthy meat and stuff like that. So I tried raising chickens last year, but most of them ended up just dying. And then even the ones that survived, even though lots of people were asking about it, I'm not really the chicken guy. People, wasn't real successful on sales of them either. So I don't really want to continue with the poultry thing. That was kind of just take my losses on that, I guess. I still have a few chickens running around here, just ones that I was getting to lay eggs. And then I bought some bees. I thought maybe I'd get into honey, or at least have the bees pollinating all the native plants around here and stuff, so that keep making the land better and stuff like that. Most of my bees died through the winter. I had 4 hives of them, and then 3 hives died. But actually the one hive that survived, they came back really strong this year, and I already split them once to populate one of the dead hives, and hopefully split them 2 more times this year and get back to 4 hives before the winter. I don't really plan to branch out too much, because I find that I kind of out of my league in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, if bison is your expertise, it's kind of good to stick towards that. So I guess, besides that, right, what are some of your other goals for the rest of 2025?
Well, I'm trying to get myself set up a little more. It's still basically the homesteading project around here. So this year, I've got some guys coming in later on this year to set up a big solar panel system to kind of keep us running, whether the grid goes down or stays up or whatever, because I installed a great big walk-in freezer last year to be able to store meat when it comes back from the butcher before customers come and pick it up and stuff like that. But I always get nervous that if I've got meat in there and the grid goes down or something, that a lot of value in that freezer at times. So I wanted to get right now I've just got generators to run it in case anything like that happens, but I wanted to take advantage of, there was some government incentives on solar power, basically interest-free loans to get that set up. So I figured, why not take advantage of that, lock in my power, just pay a fixed price up front for my power to last me the rest of my life, instead of constantly increasing power bills that I'm currently stuck with.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's the biggest project going on this summer. Other than that, eventually I want to get a lot of the cross fencing improved around here too, so that I can make better use of rotational grazing and to improve the pasture that much better. Because I don't know if you can see behind me, but pasture's a lot of bush and stuff right now. It's much better than it was 5 years ago, but it's still a long ways to go. And I think if I could rotationally, get them on a rotation and intense grazing in one area and then leave it alone for a while, it would probably improve things even better. I watched some of those videos from Joel Saladin and stuff, and that guy's doing some great things with regenerating the land from grazing. I think with the bison, do an even better level than he does it mostly with sheep and cows and stuff, but I think the bison are even better for it.
For sure. So if you could go back in time to before you started this business, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
I don't know. I might be a little too thick to have figured it out yet. I'm still kind of figuring it out as I go. I think I would have liked to have connected with more of the bison producers earlier before I did this. Because like I said, I just kind of went off half-cocked there and bought a herd of buffalo and figured they'd take care of themselves. there's definitely some advice I wish I'd gotten earlier. And just connecting with I've met some great folks in the industry so far. Everybody seems to be super helpful. It doesn't feel like we're competing against each other, is trying to help each other bring back this great species. Yeah, I would have liked to have built a little more connections before I got into it. But that said, if I didn't have Bison, I probably wouldn't have connected anyway, because what would we have in common? So.
Right. Sometimes you got to go and try things, see if it works, and you really just don't know until you get into it. So I guess on that note, right? If somebody's watching this and if they wanted to reach out to you, if they wanted to buy your Bison or just have a conversation about Bison, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact? Do you mind sharing your website, social media?
Yeah, we're on Facebook. Look up Beaver River Bison Ranch on Facebook. We're on that. I also have Instagram. I don't know how to link Instagram. I just go by Matt Rowe BRBR. And then there's also our website is kind of the main. That's how people order and stuff like that and join our email list. And that's beaverriverbison.com. So that's a great way for people to connect if they want. If you folks go on the website, and you can always get in touch with me by phone from there, and I'll sit there and chat for quite a while, sometimes more people even want.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for your time today.
Well, thank you. It's been nice talking with you.